Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. That's Danielle.
And she's Justine.
And this is That's What They Called News. So this little podcast brainchild came about because Danielle and I are lifelong platonic partners. And we used to work together. And every week, our weekly newspaper would come out. Yes, weekly.
And small town stuff.
They had this section of the newspaper, I guess you would say, where they did old newspaper articles, like from 100 years ago and like 150 years ago. And so we would just read the little things to each other, and we loved it, and we called it story time. So we are going to share our story time with all of you.
Hope you love it.
So with that, we're going to get into our first news article. This is from the Emporia News, Emporia, Kansas, from Thursday, April 6th, 1882.
It was a good year.
All right. So the news, killed by his pal, Jesse James was shot dead by Robert Ford at St. Joe. So St. Joe would be St. Joseph's, Missouri.
Okay.
That's like right outside of Kansas City. All right. So digging in. This is a direct quote from the newspaper. We'll post all of the sources in the show notes, and you can look it up where we got it. I don't remember what the page is. It's like Library of Congress. Why couldn't I remember that? That seems like a silly thing not to remember. So I pull all of these from the Library of Congress. So they, yeah. All right. So killed by his pal. It's P-A-L-L. Jesse James was shot dead by Robert Ford at St. Joe. The body of Jesse James, identified by his wife and mother. I don't think those were the same people.
I was going to say.
A thrilling incident in connection with the inquest. Mrs. Samuels curses Dick Little for his treachery. The coroner's jury returned a verdict of murder in the first degree against Ford. Personal characteristic of the noted outlaws. So that's basically outlining. They just outline what's coming in the article.
Oh.
So you can like skip to the end if you just want to read their personal characteristics, I guess, which are fantastic.
I'm very excited.
All right. So this news came from St. Joseph, Missouri. Oh, sorry. Did I say Kansas before or did I say Missouri?
No, you
I
said St. Joseph, Missouri.
Did I?
I think so.
All right. St. Joseph, Missouri. St. Joe Mo. On April 3rd, 1882. All right. A great sensation was created here this morning by the announcement that Jesse James had been shot and killed here in St. Joe. The news spread with great rapidity. Yep. But most people received it with doubts until investigation established the fact beyond question. Then the excitement became more and more intense, and crowds of people rushed to that quarter of the city to view the body of the dead outlaw and learn the particulars.
Isn't it just bananas, though, that back then they were like, oh my God, somebody died. Let's go look.
See. Yes, right? Like, I mean, we all want to do it now, but we don't because that's not right.
No.
All right. In a small frame shanty on the southeastern part of the city, on the hill not far from the World's Hotel, Jesse James has lived with his wife since sometime in November last. Robert and Charles Ford, two of his gang, have also made their headquarters with him at his house. Charles, it is said, has lived with him in that shanty ever since November. Robert arrived about 10 days ago, and the three have been making preparations for a raiding expedition, on which they were to start tonight. I always think it's funny when they say tonight or today, it's always to-night. So, like, it's funny how that's changed. Yeah, it's hyphenated. It's funny how it's just changed over time. James and the two Fords being in the front room together about 9 this morning. The former took off his belt and laid his pistols on the bed, preparing to wash himself, when Robert Ford sprang up behind him and this is all in all capitals, sent a bullet through his brain.
Oh my God.
Imagine if we reported the news like this now.
Right?
Sent a bullet through his brain. Right there in the newspaper. The ball entered the back of his head at the base of the right brain, coming out over the eye.
Oh.
The Ford brothers at once made known that they had Did I say it right? Known.
You
All right, I
did. Good job. Wait, can we address that for
Sure.
a moment?
Yep.
My beautiful, wonderful best friend over here, Justine, has this odd habit of saying knowin or
That's how
growin
it's spelled.
or but that's
Known.
not how it's said. You don't say warsh.
It doesn't have an R in it. Wash doesn't have an R. It's just wash.
Yeah.
It's known.
No.
Anywho.
It's just known that you don't.
The Ford brothers at once made known what had been done and gave themselves up. They are now under guard at the courthouse. The body of Jesse James was conveyed to an undertaker's, where it was prepared for burial, and where a photograph was taken because you got to make sure you get the picture.
The dead.
James's wife has
Pixar, it didn't happen.
Truth. James's wife has telegraphed his mother the news of his death. A number of men have identified the body, and there is no question about it being Jesse James. I guess that was a real problem back then.
Identifying
like you don't have like an ID on you.
Well, they didn't do like fingerprints or dental records or anything like that. So,
a Herald reporter viewed the body at the undertaker's when it was being photographed. This is where we get to their descriptions, and it's beautiful.
Okay.
He was a fine-looking man, apparently 40 years old, with with broad forehead, and his physiognomy. We'll just say maybe it was supposed to be physiology, was that of an intelligent as well as resolute and daring man. The house where James lived and in which he was killed has the appearance of an armory. A number of guns and pistols, including a repeating rifle, a needle gun, not sure what that is, Navy revolvers, with a good store of ammunition were found there. Jesse was in the habit of wearing 2 belts with a brace of very fine revolvers and 25 extra cartridges.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. In a small stable nearby were discovered several fine horses, the property of James. The Ford brothers claim that they are detectives. I didn't know this part.
Okay.
So the Ford brothers claim that they're detectives and that they have been on James's track for a long time. It is believed that they were with James in the Blue Cut robbery and that they were influenced in killing him by the hope of getting a big reward, which has been offered for James, dead or alive, by the governor and by the express and railroad companies.
That's a lot of people wanting you dead.
Yeah, like a lot of powerful people.
Yeah.
So they were members of his gang, but they're now claiming that they were detectives all along. They're undercover. They were undercover,
like
gang members.
Deep undercover.
Yeah, because they participated in the robbery. The news at Kansas City. So in these newspapers, they pull little pieces of articles from a bunch of different newspapers. So it's kind of like the Associated Press where they send out the articles, but then these little local papers just print excerpts of each one.
So slightly more reliable than Wikipedia.
Ish. I'm not sure, actually. It's very exaggerated.
So a needle gun is a firearm that has a needle-like firing pin.
That makes sense.
To circle back to that, because I was curious. I had to use the Google machine.
All right. Cool. All right. Kansas City, April 3rd. The news of the killing of Jesse James has created an immense excitement in this city, though the report is treated with incredulity. And even at this late hour, many unbelievers can be found. As soon as the news was received here this afternoon, Commissioner Craig left for St. Joe with a heavily armed posse of men to guard the body of Jesse James and protect Ford, the man who killed him.
First, what were they worried that was going to happen to the body? And second, why are we protecting the dude that killed him?
Because he's a detective.
Okay, fine.
Well, that's what they say anyway. At the police station, it was learned that Bob Ford, a young man who has been hanging about the station for several weeks past, was the person who shot and killed Jesse James. Ford left the city about a week since and joined James in the vicinity of St. Joe, remaining with him until an opportunity to kill him was found. So he just joined up with Jesse James just to get the opportunity to kill him. From the police, it is learned that Ford, who is said to be a member of the gang, was under the control of Craig and has been used as an instrument for James's destruction. Ford is a young man, about 22 years old, and looked like a verdant youth from the country in appearance. He is a mere boy and is the last person in the world to be taken for the slayer of the famous outlaw.
It's always
I
the
mean,
quiet
I'm
ones.
sorry, Robert. That was just ouch. Details of the tragedy. St. Joseph, Missouri, April 3rd. Between 8 and 9 o'clock this morning, Jesse James, the Missouri outlaw, before whom the deeds of Fra Diavolo and Dick Turpin, which I looked those up because I didn't know who those were, and I couldn't find anything on the Fra it's Diavolo. I couldn't find anything on that. And it could be that the letters weren't quite right because the copies of the newspapers are kind of hard to read sometimes. But Dick Turpin was an English highwayman.
Okay.
So basically what Jesse James was. Okay, so before whom the deeds of those two men dwindle into insignificance, was killed by a boy of 20 years old named Robert Ford. So I think we just said he was 22 and now he's 20. So there's that.
Okay.
I don't know how old he was. He was somewhere between 20 and 22.
Glad they can keep their facts straight.
Named Robert Ford at his temporary residence on the corner of 13th and Lafayette Streets in this city. In the light of all moral reasoning, the shooting was unjustifiable, but the law is vindicated and the $50,000 reward offered by the state for the body or the brigand dead or alive will doubtless go to the man who had the courage to draw a revolver on the notorious outlaw when his back was turned. As in his case, there is little doubt that the killing was the result of a premeditated plan formed by Robert and Charles, several months ago. That was one big long sentence, and really I just wanted to go back to the $50,000 reward. That was in 1804.
That's like a bazillion dollars.
How much do you think it is? I looked it up.
You looked.
I did.
It's got to be. So $50,000.
1804. Yeah.
Seriously, like $1 million.
Yeah, 1.5 million. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. That was a big reward for
Yeah.
somebody. Could you imagine the government giving that big of a reward?
No. The taxes that you would have to pay.
Right? That's ridiculous.
Wait, can they tax reward money?
Oh, they probably would.
I mean, they tax lottery winnings. And
they tax
stuff like
everything.
That. So, yeah.
Charles had been a comrade of Jesse James since the 3rd of last November and entirely possessed his confidence. Robert Ford, his brother, joined Jesse near Mrs. Samuel's house, mother of the James boys, last Friday, a week ago, and accompanied Jesse and Charles to this city, Sunday, March 23rd. Jesse has a wife and 2 children who removed from Kansas City, where they had lived several months until they feared their whereabouts would be suspected, in a wagon to this city, arriving here November 1st, 1881, accompanied by Chas Ford, and rented a house on the corner of Lafayette and 21st Streets, where they secured the house number 1318 on Lafayette Street, formerly the property of Councilman Islesburg, paying $14 a month for it and giving the name of Thoss Howard. Okay, first of all, $14 a month.
Hell yeah.
How much do you think that is?
Like $800 a month.
430.
Really?
428. Yeah,
Oh,
not
okay.
not very much. Also, okay, so we're abbreviating Charles by Chas,
Chas.
Chas. So then what is THOS the abbreviation of? Thoss.
Thomas? Yeah.
That's my best guess. If anybody out there knows, let us know. The house is a one-story cottage painted white with green shutters and is romantically situated on the brow of a lofty eminence east of the city, commanding a line view of the principal portion of the city, the river and railroads, and adapted as by nature for the perilous and desperate calling of Jesse James.
Boy, they got it for a steal at $14 a month.
Right? It sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Quaint, if you will. Also, they have really long sentences. Mm-hmm. Just east of the house is a deep gulch-like ravine, and beyond that is a broad expanse of open country skirted by a belt of timber. The house, except from the west side, can be seen for several miles. There is a large yard attached to the cottage and a stable where Jesse has been keeping 2 horses, which were found there this morning. We heard about those.
Okay.
It was very detailed. Charles and Robert have been occupying one of the rooms in the rear of the dwelling and have secretly had an understanding to kill Jesse ever since last fall. A short time ago, before Robert had joined James, the latter proposed to rob the bank at Platte City. He said the Burgess murder trial would commence there today, and his plan was that if they could get another companion to take a view of the Platte City Bank, and while the arguments were being heard in the murder case, which would naturally engage the attention of the citizens, boldly execute one of their favorite raids. So they're going to distract the citizens with this murder trial and go rob their bank.
That's what I would do.
I mean, it makes sense. Yep. It's a good plan. Mm-hmm. Charlie Ford approved of the plan. Great, so do I. And suggested his brother Robert as a companion worthy of sharing in the enterprise with them. Jesse had met the boy at the latter's house near Richmond 3 years ago and consented to see him. The 2 men, accordingly, went to where Robert was and arranged to have him accompany them to Platte City. As stated, all 3 came to St. Joe a week ago Sunday. They remained at the house all week. Jesse thought it best that Robert should not exhibit himself on the premises, lest the presence of 3 able-bodied men who were doing nothing should excite suspicion. They had fixed upon tonight to go to Platte City. Ever since the boys had been with Jesse, they had watched for an opportunity to shoot him. But he was always so heavily armed that it was impossible to draw a weapon without James seeing it. They declare that they had no idea of taking him alive, considering the undertaking suicidal. They're like, if we try to bring him in alive, he's going to murder us.
They're probably not wrong.
They're probably not wrong. The opportunity they had long wished for came this morning. Breakfast was over. Charlie Ford and Jesse James had been in the stable currying the horses preparatory to their night ride. On returning to the room where Robert Ford was, Jesse said, "It's an awfully hot day," and pulled off his coat and vest and tossed them on the bed. Then he said,
"And then
I guess I'll take my pistols off. Oh, no, sorry. I guess I'll take off my pistols for fear somebody will see them when I walk in the yard." So he was just like, I'm just going to set down all my weapons. He unbuckled the belt in which he carried 2 .45 caliber revolvers, 1 Smith & Wesson, and the other a Colt, and laid them on the bed with his coat and vest. He then picked up a dusting brush with the intention of dusting some pictures which hung on the wall. To do this, he got a chair. His back was now turned to the brothers, who silently stepped between Jesse and his revolvers. At the motion from Charlie, both drew their guns. Robert was the quickest of the 2. In one motion, he had the long weapon to a level with his eye, with the muzzle less than 2 and not more than 4 feet from the back of the outlaw's head. Even in that motion, quick as a thought, there was something that did not escape the acute ears of the haunted man. He made a motion as if to turn his head to ascertain the cause of that suspicious sound, but too late. I don't really believe what Robert said happened.
no.
I just don't imagine Jesse James just laying down his guns and being like, I'm just going to set these right here.
It was all very, very domestic.
Right?
for
Right? And now he's dusting the pictures?
Right.
That seems odd. I feel like there's more to this story. Bob wasn't telling us the truth.
No, definitely not.
Although it's a really good story. A nervous pressure on the trigger, a quick flash, a sharp report, and the well-directed ball crashed through the outlaw's skull. There was no outcry, just a swaying of the body, and it fell heavily backwards upon the carpeted floor. The shot had been fatal, and all the bullets in the chambers of Charlie's revolvers, still directed at Jesse's head, could not more effectively have decided the fate of the greatest bandit and freebooter that ever figured in the pages of a country's history. The ball had entered the skull and made its way out through the forehead over the left eye. Also, remember that picture that they have of Jesse James, the dead body? I'm going to post that.
Okay.
I've got it. It's a pretty good picture of a dead guy in a coffin. It had been fired out of a Colt 445? 40, I don't know. 45. I'm going to guess it's a Colt 45.
And two
And that's a
zigzags.
misprint.
Sorry.
Baby, that's all we need. Anywho.
Off topic.
It had been fired out of a Colt 45, improved pattern, silver mounted and pearl handled, presented by the dead man to his slayer only a few days ago. So he was shot with the same gun that he gave this guy.
Ooh,
That's just mean.
Yeah.
Mrs. James was in the kitchen when the shooting was done. Divided from the room in which the bloody tragedy occurred by the dining room. She heard the shot and, dropping her household duties, ran into the front room. She saw her husband lying extended on his back and his slayers, each holding his revolver in his hand, moving for the fence in the rear of the house. Robert had reached the enclosure and was in the act of scaling it when she stepped to the door and called to him. "Robert, you have done this. Come back." Robert answered, "I swear to God I didn't." Liar. They returned to where she stood. So they're like climbing over the fence. They're like, "Hold up. We'll come back and explain." Mrs. James ran to the side of her husband and lifted up his head. Life was not yet extinct, and when she asked him if he was hurt, it seemed to her that he wanted to say something, but could not. She tried to wash away the blood that was coursing over his face from the hole in his forehead, but it seemed to her that the blood would come faster than she could wipe it away. In her hands, Jesse James died. Charles Ford explained to Mrs. James that, quote, "a pistol had accidentally went off."
Oh.
Like, I don't, really understand what was all happening here because it's really fluffy wording, but it sounded like there was more than one shot.
No, basically what they were saying before was he only fired the gun once and all the rest of the bullets in the gun
Didn't matter because the first one was
done
fatal.
a better job.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So the pistol accidentally went off. Mrs. James.
Accidentally. He was
Accidentally.
cleaning it off, went off in his hand.
Oh no, in the back of his head. "Yes," Mrs. James, "I guess it went off on purpose." She knows.
She
She ain't fooled. Meanwhile, Charlie had gone back into the house and brought out 2 hats, and the 2 boys left the house. They came back for their hats.
Yes.
They went to the telegraph office and sent a message to Sheriff Timberlake of Clay County, Governor Crittenden, and other officers, and then surrendered themselves to Marshal Craig. So they tell her, "I swear I didn't do it," and then they turn around and go send a telegraph that says they did it, and then go turn themselves in.
Well, maybe they were scared that she was just going to grab her husband's guns and be like,
I feel like she should have.
probably.
It was like that movie, the one with Colin Farrell. Have you seen that one? Jesse James. Highly recommend it. It's a really...
I'm gonna have to watch it now. I don't know that I've ever
It's
seen
not
it.
a great movie, but it's like early 2000s great, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's got Colin Farrell in it.
Okay.
When the Ford boys appeared at the police station, they were told by an officer that Marshal Craig and a posse of officers had gone in the direction of the James residence, and they started after them and surrendered themselves. So they just crossed paths and then had to go back. There's a lot of going back and forth here.
Okay.
They accompanied the officers to the house and returned in custody of the police to the marshal's headquarters, where they were furnished with dinner. And at about 3 o'clock, they were removed to the old circuit courtroom, where the inquest was held in the presence of an immense crowd. So back in the day, they immediately pulled people into like the court's inquest to determine like if there was
a crime.
Right, exactly.
Basically.
And apparently you could just go watch. Mrs. James accompanied the officers to the hall, having previously left her 2 children, aged 7 and 3, a boy and a girl, at the house of Mrs. Turnell, who had known the Jameses under their assumed name of Howard ever since they had occupied the adjoining house. She was greatly affected by the tragedy, and her heart-rending moans and expressions of grief were sorrowful evidences of the love she bore the dead desperado.
Oh,
that's a beautiful sentence.
It is. Desperado. Sorry.
You come to your senses.
The
report of the killing of the notorious outlaw spread like wildfire through the city. As usual, the report assumed every variety of form and color. Very few accredited the news, however, and simply laughed at the idea that Jesse James was really a dead man. Nevertheless, the excitement ran high, and when one confirming report succeeded the other, crowds of hundreds gathered at the undertaking establishment where lay the body, at the city hall, at the courthouse, and, in fact, on every street corner. The almost incredible news constituting the sole object of conversation to the exclusion of the barely less engrossing topic of the coming city election. So this is like the news of the day. Like, this is a big deal. And they're like, no way Jesse James is dead. No freaking way.
I kind of feel like it could have been like presidential election or something, and they still would have been like, oh,
Jesse James is dead, right? I feel like we do that now with celebrities.
True.
It's just a little different in that we didn't have to like walk to the courthouse. We just pull it up on the internets.
Mm-hmm.
Coroner Hiddings was notified, and the undertaker, Sidon Fadden, instructed to remove the body to his establishment. This was about 10 o'clock, so we're going back in time. So we were at the courthouse at 3, now it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I think it happened at like 9.
Okay.
A large crowd accompanied the coroner to the morgue, but only the wife and a reporter were admitted. Thank God, but you had to have a reporter there.
Yes.
The body lay in a remote room of the building. It had been taken out of the casket and placed upon a table. The features appeared natural, but were disfigured by the bloody hole over the left eye. I mean, yeah, probably. The body was neatly and cleanly dressed. In fact, nothing in the appearance of the remains indicated the desperate career of the man of the many bloody scenes of which he had been the hero. The large, courageous eyes were closed in a calm slumber. Only the lower part of the face, the square cheekbones, the stout, prominent chin, covered with a soft, sandy beard, and the thin, firmly closed lips, in a measure betrayed the determined will and iron courage of the man.
Wow.
I tell you what, they liked this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think they like to hate this guy.
Probably.
A further inspection of the body revealed 2 large bullet holes. See? 2.
Mm-hmm.
On the right side of the breast. See? Breast.
Okay.
Within 3 inches of the nipple. A bullet wound in the leg. And the absence of the tip of the middle finger on the left hand.
So, but wait. These could be previous injuries.
Well, that's also true.
Not from this specific incident.
But 2 large bullet holes on the right side of the breast within 3 inches of the nipple. I feel like bullet holes sounds like a new injury. The other one says bullet wound in the leg. I don't know. But he was also missing the tip of his middle finger of his left hand, which is what they were like, yep, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, Jesse James, I know.
That's...
He can't flip me off because he's missing his finger. After viewing the remains, the coroner repaired to the courthouse. With her soon after, Mrs. James, in custody of Marshal Craig, and the 2 Ford boys, both heavily armed, followed. They were kept in separate apartments until the jury announced itself ready to bear the testimony. All right, now we're going to hear about the jury's testimony.
Okay.
But first, we have to know who the jurors are.
All right.
The jury was impaneled as follows: W.H. Channing, J.W. Moore, Warren Samuel, Foz Norris, Thomas, we're going to say, William Turner, and William H. George. The witnesses examined were Mrs. James, the Ford boys, and James A. Little. The inquest will be continued today. Kansas City, April 4th. There are no new developments at this point today about the killing of Jesse James. Governor Crittenden arrived here this morning and concluded not to go on to St. Joseph. He has ordered the officials at St. Joe to turn over the body to his wife and mother, as it has been fully identified as that of Jesse James. So here we're just going, like, that was one little clip. Here's the next one. Kansas City, April 4th. Same day. The death of Jesse James, the great Missouri bandit, is now beyond question a fact. Governor Crittenden arrived here this morning and says positively that it is he and that his death is the result of an understanding between the authorities and Bob Ford, who killed him, and Dick Little, who surrendered himself to Sheriff Timberlake at the same time Ford did. I don't know where Dick was during this shooting. We haven't heard anything about Dick until now.
Yeah.
I know he was a member of the gang, but I don't know if he was involved with this plan to kill Jesse James or what. Or if he was just like, okay, I give up. My leader's gone. The inquest at St. Joe was concluded at noon today. Mrs. Samuels, the mother of Jesse, his wife, Dick Little, and Sheriff Timberlake identified the body. See, they had to have all these different people.
It's ridiculous.
During the proceedings, Mrs. James and Mrs. Samuels made a highly sensational scene by attacking Dick Little and calling all manner of curses down upon him for having conspired to betray his leader. So they think he's involved.
Okay.
The governor this morning telegraphed the authorities to turn the body over to Mrs. James when the inquest was concluded, and it will probably be taken to the old farm near Kearney, Clay County, for burial. The confirmation of James's death has created a profound sensation in western Missouri, and farmers near this place and independents who had not been in either place for years rode into town this morning in the rain to investigate the rumor. Some denounced Ford. Yeah,
They got farmers out of the field.
it was a big deal.
Okay.
It was a big deal.
My goodness.
Okay. Some denounce Ford as an assassin whose only object was blood money, while others excuse him upon the ground of expediency. The governor will not go to St. Joe, but will return to will return to Jefferson City tonight, where some steps will be taken to protect Ford, who is thought to be in danger from the friends of the dead robber. I mean, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would be scared also.
I mean, for sure. All Crackerneck was upon horseback this morning, and some threats of vengeance are said to have been made against the lives of Ford and Little.
I'm sorry. Old Crackerneck?
All Crackerneck. I don't know what Crackerneck is. Is it slang for robbers? I don't know. And also, I'm so confused because it says they're threatening Ford and Little, but it was Ford and Ford.
Yeah, how is
in the story?
Little?
I
have
don't
anything
know
to do
how
with this?
Dick Little came into this, but
I mean, leave the poor guy alone.
I feel bad
He's
for him.
got a rough
It was
enough
his
life
friend.
with that name.
poor guy. The Hannibal and St. Joe Railroad Company have tendered courtesies to Mrs. James and her mother-in-law. It's so nice of them.
Yeah.
They put the $50,000 reward out for him, but we're so sorry of your loss. St. Joseph, Missouri, April 4th. Mrs. Samuels, mother of the dead outlaw, arrived here at 9:45 this morning from her home in Clay County. This is wonderful. They are going to paint you a picture of this woman.
I'm ready.
She's a large woman, 57 years old,
Okay.
and has black hair well sprinkled with gray. She was incredulous upon her arrival about the dead man being her son Jesse, and was not fully convinced until she had driven to his late residence, where she met the widow, who embraced the old lady, and both manifested great emotion. I'm just imagining these two ladies just hugging each other and wailing and just going on.
Yeah.
Mrs. Samuels, accompanied by Mrs. James and her children, were driven to the undertaker's, where they viewed the body of Jesse. They took the kids? No, she left them with the neighbor.
That's right.
This one says they took them. See, I told you
What
you
do we
can't trust.
believe?
I told you can't trust this newspaper.
Let's just take the kids down to see if the dad's really dead.
The scene was very affecting. The mother, the wife, the children, all joining in lamentations. I mean, yeah, their dad's dead.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It is. Like, maybe he was a super awesome dad.
He could have been.
We don't know.
We don't know. Mrs. Samuels says the body was that of her son, and in great emotion exclaimed, "Would to God it not!"
Was that English?
That's what she said. The mother re-entered her carriage and was driven to the courthouse, where she was to testify in the coroner's inquest then in progress. She's like, go see your dead son, then hop on over to the courthouse and be like, that was my dead son. Moving on.
Okay.
The coroner's jury again assembled at 9 o'clock this morning to continue the examination into the killing of Jesse James. Coroner Heading was on deck and managed the matter in a creditable manner. The courtroom was crowded to suffocation, there being no standing room inside, and crowds stood in the corridors outside, unable to gain admittance. The most intense interest was manifested, and the closest attention was paid to the testimony. H. Craig, police commissioner of Kansas City, was the first witness sworn. He said the body corresponds with the description of Jesse James. I know the Fords. Robert Ford assisted Sheriff Timberlake and myself. Ford was not commissioned. Robert Ford acted through our instructions. Charles was not acting under our instructions. So good thing Robert pulled the trigger first.
Yeah.
Because Charles wasn't covered.
So, because Robert pulled the trigger first, it's okay. But
Because
if
he was with the police.
Charles had pulled the trigger first, it would have been murder?
I guess.
Double standards, man.
I know. And then what are you supposed to do with that $50,000 reward?
Right?
Do you get it?
And do you get a pardon?
But they said dead or alive.
True.
I know. I really wish I lived back then so I could know.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this stuff. Sheriff Timberlake testified that he was acquainted with Jesse James and recognized the body. They were personally acquainted. Saw him last in 1870. But I thought this was 1804.
Weird.
Must be 1770. I may have mistyped that. I knew his face. He had a finger off. See, I told you. I told Ford to get his brother to assist him. So they were together.
Okay.
Oh, now Dick Little was sworn. I have seen the body and recognize it as the body of Jesse James. I have no doubt of it. The general appearance is that of Jesse James. His finger is off as James's was, and I recognize the scars in the side and the thigh. Oh, so they were scars.
Aha.
Charles Alderman, I don't know why that was hard, testified that he was not acquainted with the deceased, but saw him and traded horses with him 2 weeks ago. Ford came to look at a horse for his uncle and bought it.
Good to know.
Good. James Finley testified that he was not acquainted with Jesse James. I went to the house after the shooting and found 2 horses. I sent 2 officers after the Johnsons, as they were then called. Ford came in and acknowledged the shooting. He described the wounds on the body and claimed that the man was Jesse James. Ford told me that there were watches and jewelry at the house. I found watches, jewelry, pistols, cartridges, and a purse. I gave the purse to Mrs. James. It had some small change in it. A scarf pin was found with the marks of SWJ on it.
That's interesting.
I don't know what James's wife or Jesse James's wife was.
What her name is.
No. Mrs. Samuels, mother of Jesse, was then called. As she entered the room, all eyes were turned upon her. Men stood on the shots, craned their necks, and used every endeavor to gain a view of the woman who, although the mother of an outlaw, had the respect of every man in the room.
I bet.
She moved with a slow step and bowed head to the witness stand. She's a large woman with a kindly face, and her eyes and a rather prominent kindly face and eyes, and a rather prominent nose. Her hair is black, sprinkled with gray. She was dressed in black with a black straw hat and a black veil that partly covered her face. When she took the stand, her face had a resolute appearance, but as the examination progressed, that disappeared, and she was very much affected. She testified that she was the mother of Jesse James and that she had seen the body but a few moments before. "Is that the body of your son?" asked the coroner. "It is," she answered, and then sobbed out, oh, this quote's better, "Would to God it was not."
Would to God it was not.
Yeah, she
Oh, she wishes.
yeah,
Okay.
would to God it was not.
Also, Jesse James' wife.
Mm-hmm.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Zerelda Mims.
I did know that because of that movie. Dude, what is that actress? She's on Legally Blonde, and she plays the stepmom who... Legally Blonde 2. She's the stepmom who's accused of killing the husband, but she was like an exercise instructor.
Yes. Okay.
God damn, I don't know her name, but
don't
she's in
either.
that movie.
Okay.
And she's Zerelda.
Okay.
I did know that.
All right. I'm gonna search for this movie so I can.
Okay. Figure out what that actress's name was. Word to God, it was not. Placing her hands upon the heads of the little son and daughter of Jesse James, who were standing just in front of her, she continued, "And these are his orphan children." As she said this, she was moved to tears. Mrs. James was asked to raise her veil, and as she did so, Mrs. Samuels was asked if she recognized her. She answered that she did, and that she was the widow of Jesse James.
The movie is called American Outlaws, and
I thought it was just called Jesse James. I was wrong.
Her name is Allie Larder.
Oh, yeah.
She was also on Varsity Blues. She had the whipped cream bikini.
Yes, and the washer scene, that was her
Yes.
too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, mystery solved.
Mrs. James testified that she recognized the preceding witness as Mrs. Samuels. When Mrs. Samuels retired from the courtroom, a thrilling incident occurred.
Oh.
Dick Little was standing near the door, and as she neared the opening, she saw him. Her eye rested upon him for a moment. Nope.
Just one.
Yep. Just one eye. And then she turned upon him with the ferocity of a tiger. "Traitor, traitor, traitor," she exclaimed excitedly. "God will send vengeance on you for this. You are the cause of all of this. Oh, you villain. I would rather be in my poor boy's place than in yours." Again, still don't know how Dick Little's involved.
Poor guy.
Did he introduce him to Ford? Like,
Yeah. Like, what did Dick do?
what did Dick do? Little cowed like a little. Oh, that's his name.
Yeah.
I was like, little. Just cowed a little. Sorry. Little cowed like a whip dog before the towering rays of the bereaved mother, and turned pale and red by turns. "I did not hurt him," he answered. "I thought you knew who killed him." Right? Same.
Yeah.
Mrs. Samuel's only reply was, "Oh God, my poor boy, my poor boy." Then she retired from the room, and the jury retired to make up its verdict. The jury retired to make up its verdict. I wrote that twice. Whoops. Quote, "We, the jury, find that the deceased is Jesse James and that he came to his death by a pistol shot at the hands of Robert Ford." It was really good investigating, guys.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Solid.
Good job. The two Ford brothers are confined in jail, charged with murder, under a warrant sworn out by Mrs. James.
Why are they both in jail? And how does the civilian mother of the deceased swear out a warrant?
This is his wife, but I agree. That's weird, right? Like, cops issue the judge issues the warrant for the arrest. I mean, I wish we could issue warrants for people's arrest.
Me too.
I know exactly who and I would get arrested. They will not be interviewed, and the sheriff refuses admittance to all comers. The Fords live in Ray County near Richmond, where they were born and raised. Robert, who did the shooting, is 22 years old, and Charlie is 20. I feel like that was the confusion there.
Okay.
The boys worked on their father's farm until the spring of 1880. It has to be 1780. When Robert went to Richmond to work in the store of an elder brother. He left in July last to engage in the detective business at Kansas City. He soon got his credentials as a detective and began to hunt for Jesse James. Charles engaged to help him, and the latter fell in with James. And when he moved to St. Joseph with his family, accompanied him hither, passing himself as Johnson, a nephew of Mrs. James. Charles has lived here with the family since November 9th. A little over a week ago, Robert came, and as he was well acquainted with Jesse, he went there and put up with the outlaw, and they have watched an opportunity to fix him. They have watched for an opportunity to fix him. The one who did the shooting is rather slender, not over robust, yet wiry, and certainly capable of great endurance, as well as shrewd and brave.
Okay.
His eyes are sunken and of hazel color, large, restless, and piercing. Mine aren't like that, right?
Large, restless, and piercing?
Yeah.
No.
His forehead is rather bald and high, and his hair is thin, short, and of a light brown color. Now he's 21 years of age.
Okay.
And he's about 5 feet 8 inches high, and wears a nut brown suit and a sack coat. His hands are long and slender with tapering fingers. He would never be singled out of a crowd as a youth of any extraordinary quality worthy of special notice. Yet he would be taken for a man of iron will and courage of a lion and abundance of self-control.
All right.
I mean,
sounds like a solid dude.
wiry.
Yeah.
Wiry.
Also, 1882 is the year he died. Jesse James. I feel like somewhere you have a typo, my friend.
Oh, it's 1882.
Okay.
Yep. Where did I get 1804?
I'm not sure.
Shoot, guys, I don't know. I'm tired. It's late. This is way past my bedtime. Doo-doo. The brother Charles is considerably larger, taller, and broader. His hair is dark, eyes dark brown, and is dish-faced. What a beautiful compliment. His lower jaw protrudes, and he has a decidedly bulldog look, and is, if anything, more brutal and braver than Robert. This reminds me of my brother-in-law and his twin brother, where one is more tall and slender, and one is short and bulldog-like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Weird. He's a bulldog. It is evident that Charles would be a bad man in a fight. While Robert is perhaps the slickest and the schemer, Charles will come in for cold-blooded and brutal work. The boys are cool, self-possessed, and move with an upright, firm, and solid tread.
I just want to go back in time to see how one of these reporters would describe me.
Right? I don't
really
really want to know. I bet they would be fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. I'm not the most attractive person, I'm just saying.
Shut your face.
It is understood that the body of Jesse James is to be delivered over to Mrs. Samuels, his mother, who will bury it at her home in Clay County. The city is full of strangers who have been attracted from every direction by the news of the tragic death of the notorious outlaw. Again, Kansas City, April 4th. Living apart from the rest of mankind and the celebrated outlaws may be said to have lost confidence in their fellow men, and in many instances have even looked upon their companions in crime with a suspicious eye. And only in their self-confidence in the use of their trusty weapons, which they never went without, did they ever find any rest. They are temperate to the extent of total abstinence, and learned wariness and caution in the rugged school of experience. Frank James, naturally of a studious nature, had received a good education before he entered Quantrell's guerrilla band. And those who have known him agree that he has never permitted an opportunity to pass to add to his acquirements. On the contrary, Frank is Jesse James's older brother. Mm-hmm. On the contrary, Jesse was but a lad of 16 when he left his home to enter in his wild career of crime. And caring nothing for learning, he has never taken any pains to supply the deficiencies of his early schooling. Both, however, traveled, mixed with all kinds of society, naturally acquiring a gentlemanly bearing and easy powers of conversation. Frank is quiet and reserved. Jesse, in his younger days, was a fellow of infinite jest, and in latter life, notwithstanding his habits of caution, was known as a frolicking fellow.
I feel like some people would consider that an insult these days.
I think Jesse James may have considered that an insult. He's like, I am not frolicking, guys. I'm robbing trains.
Right? Oh, man.
They never missed an opportunity to show their hatred of the officers of the law, and in the midst of imminent personal danger, always maintained their coolness. Superadded to physical courage unequaled, they possess cunning and craft never surpassed. When under their true names, they never associate together, never travel the same road in company, never travel the same way in the same day. Though never together, they are never far apart. If one should fall, it is believed by those that know that his death would be terribly avenged by the other. I think this sounds like us.
Mm-hmm.
Even we're never far apart.
Nope.
This, of course, remains to be seen now that Jesse is dead. In intellectual capacity, there can be no comparison between the boys, it being conceded by all that Frank is the superior, Jesse being his equal only in physical coolness and courage, without possessing any of his shrewdness and sagacity. 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 If this be true, Frank has lost in Jesse's death only a faithful executor, bold to recklessness, whom he may be able to replace and carry on his systematic campaign of robbery and murder of old. So they're like, really, it's Frank who is doing all the work here, and anybody could replace Jesse. Interesting.
But Jesse was the famous one.
Right.
Weird.
Because he was good looking?
I guess.
Probably. Sex sells. Domestic life. Both of the James boys are married men and the father of children. Not a little romance was added to their wooing by the fact that even during courtship, there was a price set upon their heads. So they're like, hey, want to get married? There's a price on the head. I don't feel like I would really accept. Right? I mean,
like, we're constantly going to have to be moving and looking over our shoulders because at any moment I could totally get caught. Also, there's a high probability that I will be shot and die and leave you and our children high and dry. How's that sound?
Irresistible.
Yeah.
Can't hardly wait. Frank wooed and won Miss Annie Ralston, daughter of Samuel Ralston, a respectable citizen of Independence, in September 1875. The marriage was an elopement, and the family felt deeply the disgrace of the only daughter's error.
Of course.
Daddy didn't like it.
Nope.
Oh, here we go. Here's Jesse's wife. Jesse married his cousin, Miss Zerelda Mims. at the house of his mother in Clay County in the autumn of 1874. Her parents were both dead, and her only sister married several years before she did. Jesse is the father of 2 little boys and a girl, which the whole time that says he had 1 boy, 1 girl. And there's actually pictures of them. I will also post those. But now it's two boys and a girl. Well, Frank has 2 children.
Maybe one of the boys died.
I mean, I guess they were cousins. Oh, that was weird.
Burn. Oh, friend.
I shouldn't say anything. My family tree doesn't really fork very much. So I should just keep my mouth shut when it comes to that.
Oh, man.
All right, what you got? That was that story.
All right. So I have some other quotes from the same newspaper.
Okay.
All right. Recent cases are noted in medical journals of tetanus. Tetanus or lockjaw having been induced on account of bathing in water that was too hot.
Too hot?
Too hot.
You can get tetanus from being too hot?
I guess.
Maybe it's just dirty water. I think they missed that part.
I would. There's got to be something more to that story. The Emporia man who is preparing to send his mother-in-law to the hot springs has probably read this statement before.
See, like, really, that's what they called news? Like, I just love their little insults. They're like, go ahead and send your mother-in-law to go get tetanus in the water.
You can't talk anymore. It'll be great.
Jeez.
In a number of states, women have been admitted to the bar by the legislature after the courts have held that they are excluded by the status in force. No, excluded by the statutes.
There you go. You got
Oh.
it. That's all right.
Let's try
Nailed
that again. In a number of states, women have been admitted to the bar by the legislature after the courts have held that they are excluded by the statutes in force. They are now admitted on equal terms with men in Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Maine, Minnesota, North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin by an act of Congress passed in 1879. Those who have been for 3 years members of the highest court of any state or territory or of the Supreme Court of the District of Columbia may be admitted to practice before the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yay, feminism.
Woo!
We could be lawyers.
Big step.
That is a big step.
All
We couldn't
right.
vote.
No.
Couldn't vote.
Nope.
But you could be a lawyer.
All right.
That's all right. I'll take it. Little steps.
Yep. Okay. Topeka Capital. The AT and SF companies have made arrangements with the United States Signal Service Department to send weather reports every morning to all stations on the road. These reports indicate the probability of weather for each day in Kansas and the Indian Territory.
The beginning of the weather report.
There's not a date on it, but that's exciting.
It's from the same
stuff.
newspaper, so it's
Okay,
1882.
Okay.
Nuts.
Heretofore, the indications have been for the Missouri and Mississippi valleys. This news feature will be tried for 30 days, at the end of which time all the station agents will report to Mr. Gemmel of this city. And if the interest and the demand for these indications are great enough, they will be continued.
Oh, so we're only going to keep doing it if you need it, if you like it.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Circulars in regard to the matter have been sent to all agents at the stations along the lines of the AT and SF Railway.
All right.
Okay. It has been discovered that St. Patrick, who banished the snakes from Ireland, was an ardent prohibitionist.
Oh. Really?
He didn't want to drink?
With the snakes? Oh.
Weird.
He didn't like snakes. Right. Oof.
Because Prohibition was getting rid of
All the alcohol, yeah. For sure. He didn't like to drink. St. Patrick. Okay,
Yeah.
but we celebrate St. Patrick's Day with alcohol. Like a lot of it. She got it. Ding! I just saw the light bulb hit.
Blood moment. Oh my God. Okay.
So I don't think St. Patrick would be super proud of how we celebrate his holiday.
Probably not. Oh, man. Okay. Next, the governor of Maryland has signed a bill making wife beating punishable with 40 lashes.
I don't even know.
40 lashes.
Finally.
Who gets
finally
to
there's a
give
punishment.
the lashes?
Ooh, the wife should definitely get to give the lashes. Could you imagine how bad she'd be beat when they went home?
Oh, God. No. Okay. Yeah. Next, at Greenwood, Indiana, a man named Wesley Manley placed some dynamite cartridges before the fire today. The funeral will take place as soon as all of the corpses come down.
Touche.
Oh my God.
That's terrible. Kaboom. That's not the time for a joke. Just blows himself up and they're like, we can make a joke out of this. Oh. Bad timing.
Oh. Okay. I.S. Kellogg has retired from the ministry and become a lawyer. We should suppose that the latter profession would offer very tempting inducements to a gentleman of Isaac's moral flexibility.
Burn. Ouch. Oof. That's what they think of you, sir.
All right. Professor Proctor repudiates the prediction accredited to him that the Earth will be destroyed 15 years hence, and wants it understood that he thinks it more probable that it will last 15 million will last 15 million of years.
Sure.
Okay. So the prospect of the ultimate completion of the government building at Topeka is not utterly hopeless after all.
We've got 15 million years to complete it, guys. We can do it. Being from Kansas, I feel like it's probably still under construction.
Yes, absolutely.
I've never visited. I should probably do that as a Kansan. Be a good kid.
But it's Topeka.
There's so many people there.
I'll just stay out here where there's like nothing.
With our cows.
Yep.
All right.
And the deers.
The deers.
No antelope, though.
Oh my God, the rabbits are ridiculous in my yard this year. They're so bad.
Everywhere.
All right.
Okay. An Omaha man named Jones shot his wife and then put a bullet through his own heart. His great mistake was in not reversing the program. What?
He should have shot himself first.
Gotcha. Shit. Why are some of these so far over my head?
But, like, why are they even in the newspaper?
I don't know.
And not, like, reporting as news. They're just like, we're going to make fun of this douchebag for killing his wife. Or blowing himself up with dynamite.
That one's great. Okay. There are now 3 prisoners in the jail, though the janitors assure us that there are a host of people running loose who ought to be there.
The janitors? The janitors are passing judgments now?
Janitor assures us that there are a host of people running loose who ought to be there.
I feel like that's true of today's society as well.
Not wrong. The joy of a 6-year-old boy over his first red top boots is not to be compared to that of Ed Kingsbury of Hartford over his new girl.
I'm sorry. Does that mean he's excited or not excited?
I think.
I don't know. Can the boots make you run fast and jump high?
Obviously.
Okay, so then he's excited.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I hope
Makes sense.
for her.
He's
I hope
excited.
so.
So excited about his new girl. How cute. I wonder if anybody knows who this guy is.
Maybe somebody in Hartford knew who he was. I don't know.
I don't even know where Hartford is.
I don't know either. Okay.
All right.
W.D. Brewer shot and killed a white crane at Neosho Rapids Thursday, which weighed 35 pounds and measured 8 feet between the tips of the wings.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is a huge bird.
It was a very, very large bird.
Also, I don't think you're allowed to shoot cranes anymore.
I don't think so either.
And I know where Neosho is.
I'm proud that I pronounced it correctly.
You did.
Look at me go.
Plus.
Yeah. Okay, last but not least.
All right.
The sanitary conditions of Lyon County was perhaps never better than at the present time. Our doctors have but few serious cases to attend, and the undertakers are doing nothing.
Because of the sanitary conditions.
I guess.
All right.
Was there like an outbreak of cholera or something?
There had to have been
In
something.
the
I mean,
late
weren't people
1800s?
always sick then? They didn't wash their hands. They didn't bathe.
Everything was gross.
Everything was gross. But they're like, hey, we're clean now. Our doctors aren't busy. And there's nobody dead.
Yay!
Except for that one undertaker who had to take a picture with Jesse James's body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, I can show you the picture.
Okay, show me.
Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. I'll post this for everybody else, but I haven't showed Danielle yet, so I'm going to do that. I got to find the right one. It's not a great picture because 1880s, but
yeah. He was a pretty good looking dude.
I mean, he's dead.
I like a guy with a beard.
You can see the hole over his eyebrow.
That's weird.
Oh, and here, there's a bunch of people posing with him.
Yes, that's what I
Will
my
you
goal.
please take... Oh, and here's his kids. Will you please take pictures of me in my coffin? Don't do that.
But
I don't want to be in a coffin.
Okay, but I was thinking like selfie mode. Like, I'll get Dion like...
Throw the deuces. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. This was fun.
It was so much
I'm excited
fun.
to do more.
Me too.
I hope everybody likes it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably have some social media stuff going out, but I haven't set any of that up yet. So
it's okay. TBC.
TBC. Mm-hmm. Have a great night.
You too. And thanks for listening to
That's what they called news. Because seriously,
what?
The guy blew himself up
With dynamite.
as soon as the corpses come down.